There's breaking Brexit news tonight. The European Union just agreed to delay Britain's exit from the EU, which was meant to happen in just 8 days. It will now happen in May if the British Parliament agrees on a withdrawal deal, or it will happen in April if they remain hopelessly deadlocked. Now, if, like me, you have been sort of following the insanity of the Brexit negotiations and been really confused about what the hell is going on over there, allow me to give you a little taste of how things are looking right now. Headline: toilet paper maker stockpiles in case of a no deal. Turns out most toilet paper in the UK is manufactured in the EU, on the continent. And so if things go sideways and the UK ends up leaving the EU with no trade deal to guide the movement of goods and services, the islands could find themselves up a proverbial creek. As always, whenever I need to find out what on earth is happening with this whole Brexit thing, I turn to my favorite Brexpert, Mehdi Hasan, columnist and senior contributor to The Intercept, host of the Deconstructed podcast. All right, Mehdi, I am confused right now. There's a logjam. There's an impasse that has happened. They can't get it done. What is going on?
What is going on is embarrassing for the United Kingdom and its government and its Prime Minister, Theresa May, who told us for 2 years, Chris, that Britain would be leaving the European Union at 11 p.m. next Friday, March 29th. That is now not happening. She's had to go back to the EU and say, please, sir, can I have an extension? And they gave her an extension, not the extension she wanted. She wanted a 3-month extension to try and get this deal. She can't get her deal through Parliament, Chris. It's beyond embarrassing. It's humiliating. She should actually be out of a job. Well, she's been trying to get MPs to vote on a deal that would, that would set in place that trade agreement when Britain leaves the EU. They rejected it in January by a record margin of over 200 votes, the biggest defeat in British political history. And they rejected it again last week by more than 100 votes. She wants to do it again next week for a third time.
Wait, okay, so right. So she's negotiated a deal. Then she goes to Parliament and says, here's the deal. We're leaving the EU, but here's how the toilet paper is going to get back and forth, and here's how the buses will go. I mean, Indeed. There's a lot of stuff, right?
And on a serious note, although obviously toilet paper is very important part of your daily life, there's also Northern Ireland, which is one of the big log jams, which could actually see a return to violence if we don't get a proper deal there with the border.
Right. So there's a border there that will now be a hard border or some kind of hard border because of the withdrawal. But so she's got a deal. She goes to Parliament. She controls the majority of Parliament. That's why she is that's why she's the leader of England. And yet she can't get them to vote for it. That's the fundamental problem, right?
Well, of course, she doesn't have a majority in Parliament. She does by having the support of a hardline right-wing Northern Irish political party, who she has to keep bribing and kowtowing to. She lost her majority, Chris, in 2017, when she went to the polls and said, I'm going to have an election to get the support of the public for my Brexit plans. And they said, we're going to lose you your majority. So she's been losing a lot, Chris. That's why people are wondering, is she going to survive beyond next week? People are talking about her as the worst prime minister in British political history, and there's a lot of competition for that title. But I think, if next week she tries to go for a third time lucky and fails, I think she has to go. Her own party is saying she has to go. She's getting increasingly desperate, Chris. On Wednesday night, she gave a speech which sounded, according to one of her own MPs, Trumpian. She's told the British public, I'm on your side. The politicians aren't. It's very dangerous rhetoric. This kind of pseudo-populist stuff she's now coming up with.
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, it seems like there's a fundamental breakdown of how the system works, how a sort of parliamentary system works,
Exactly.
which is that generally if you lose, if you cannot deliver the votes, then the government collapses and there's new elections. But no one wants to be prime minister because you got the leave thing to deal with.
Well, nobody wants to be the prime minister because nobody actually knows what to do here. It's not as if Boris
Johnson... That's the problem. Like, you can rag on her all you want, but anyone who would be prime minister would sort of be screwed.
So here's the problem. If she loses her job next week, you get a new prime minister, but you don't get a new deal because no one knows what the deal is that gets everyone's support on all sides of the House. And if you get this extension, which she's now got, what does that do? That just moves the cliff edge.
Yes, it's the same problem.
You'll just invite me back in a month or 2 months and we'll have this conversation again. And you'll say, what's going to happen next week? And I'll say, who the hell knows? Because this is a mad decision. They should never have done it in this way with a referendum campaign based on lies and misinformation and a weird binary question. Then invoking Article 50, saying we're going to get out in 2 years with no plan. The Donald Tusk, the European leader, said recently there's a special place in hell for the people who decided to do Brexit with no plan as to how to implement it.
I mean, I feel like I'm watching like a Roomba that's like stuck in a box where it keeps bumping up against all the obstacles. There is no functioning majority among British public opinion for what to do and how to handle the thing that they voted for 2 years ago.
Indeed, and we see today 2 million people signed an online petition saying just revoke Article 50, get rid of this Article 50, getting at that. But Theresa May said, no, we won't do that. She wants to have this third vote. The Speaker in Parliament, Chris, has said, no, you can't have a third vote. You can't just keep voting on the same thing. According to parliamentary protocol going back to 1604, he says you can't do it again. So guess what they're now saying? This is rumours. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's talk of going to the Queen and saying shut down Parliament. Shut down Parliament for a day, then reopen it. Then it'll technically be a new session, and then we could vote again, which is, of course, nonsense. I don't think the Queen, who's a savvy, neutral political player, is going to do that. But look, serious point, Chris. If there is no deal and Britain crashes out of the EU without a deal in April or May, there will be chaos. I mean, there's talk today of the Ministry of Defence setting up a special military team in a nuclear bunker to discuss what happens on the streets of Britain. At the ports, are we going to have shortages of medicine, of food, of fresh produce? This is madness in one of the richest countries on earth.
Yeah, I mean, the Queen thing, so because there's no constitution in Britain, right, it's governed by sort of
protocols,
tradition, precedent, right? That the Queen come in and make a new one so she get her vote. But what's so wild about this is, we've watched the back and forth here on, say, the border wall. But with all this stuff, it's like there's no hard deadline. I mean, there was, and we had a shutdown for 35 days. So that shows you what happens when there is a hard deadline. But this is a deadline that controls the entire economy of the UK. I mean, everything gets coming back and forth, and it could just happen.
It's already been damaged. We've already had 2 years of Brexit-related problems. You have companies relocating abroad, banks heading for the exit door. There's lots of people leaving. There's already economic problems, but everyone agrees that if there's a no-deal Brexit, the British economy really tanks then. But look, here's the problem. They've been obsessed with Brexit for so long. There's all sorts of other problems that aren't getting any coverage. And one Conservative MP said this week, look, I support Brexit, but I wish it hadn't happened because then we could talk about something else.
All right, Mehdi Hasan, thank you for illuminating us. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.